The search for these two missing girls is over. Ivy Webster and Brittany Brewer. This comes after Okmulgee County deputies found 7 bodies on the property of a convicted rapist.
What started as an innocent sleepover would end in a brutal massacre.
Holly McFadden suffered 3 gun wounds to the head, and Jesse McFadden appears to have shot himself in the head.
13-year-old Tiffany Guess had invited her friends over for a slumber party. It was supposed to be fun and safe, with normal teen girl activities. But when the girls didn't return home the next day, the family started getting worried. They called the police, who launched an investigation. And what they uncovered was something out of a horror movie.
Inside was a true house of horror. Throughout the house, there were restraints, sex toys, paraphernalia, and evidence left behind by law enforcement.
The details of this case are truly disturbing, but to understand how everything happened, let's start at the beginning. This story starts with a 35-year-old woman named Holly Guess from Henryetta, Oklahoma. She was a mother to 3 teenagers, 17-year-old Riley Allen, Michael Mayo, 15, and Tiffany Guess, 13. Her family described her as being a loving mother whose kids were her world. Holly was sweet and funny, super creative, and super smart. She snorted like a pig when she laughed, which only made her laugh harder, her sister Heather said. The eldest daughter, Riley, was described as artistic. She had a talent with a paintbrush and wanted to be an artist and a doctor so she could help people. Michael played football, ran cross country and track, and was an all-around fantastic young man, according to his grandmother. Tiffany, the youngest, also ran cross country. She was also in the choir and had just tried for the cheerleading squad. Her grandma said she was the sweetest, most loving girl you'd ever meet. We called her Tiffosaurus because when she'd get mad at you, she'd growl. Although the children had different biological fathers, they referred to Tiffany's father, Joe, as their dad. He had been married to Holly for 13 years and therefore was in their lives for the longest time. And he was a great dad to them, and they all loved and appreciated him. Unfortunately, things between him and Holly didn't work out, and they got a divorce. Despite this, Joe remained a constant father figure in their children's lives, and even thought of legally adopting Michael and Riley. But everything changed in 2021 when Holly met 39-year-old Jesse McFadden. It's unclear how long they dated before they decided to secretly get married on May 26, 2022. Holly's sister Heather said their family didn't even find out about the marriage until several months later. We were told they were married on Christmas Eve. We did not find out that it wasn't true until yesterday, May 2nd, 2023. No one in my family even knew the wedding took place. They had a wedding cake at our Christmas Eve party. I am not sure how or when they met. They moved in together right around the beginning of 2021, I believe. So it appears that things moved pretty fast between the two. But for the first few months of marriage, everything was going perfectly. Jesse seemed like a caring and attentive guy who cared for Holly and her children. But that was only a facade. And the horrifying truth about who Jesse really was would soon be unveiled. So let's just say Jesse was not the kind of guy that you would want anywhere near your children. Born in Kansas, he dropped out of school in 9th grade for some unknown reason. Then while living in McAlester, Oklahoma, he began getting in trouble with the law. His first run-in with the police was in 2002 when he reportedly got arrested for stealing over $80,000 from his grandfather. He pleaded guilty to a felony charge of grand larceny and was put on probation after spending 90 days in jail. The following year, he was arrested for reportedly attacking a 16-year-old girl at knife point. Crystal Strong later described the horrifying ordeal, saying that she knew Jesse because he was dating her friend. She described her relationship with him as acquaintances. Then one day in November 2003, they were at a house party together, but when Christy left and went home, Jesse followed her. She recalled hearing a persistent, loud banging noise at her front door around 2 or 3 in the morning. I answered the door finally, and it was Jesse. I was like, "What are you doing here? Like, what do you want?" Jesse reportedly told her that his girlfriend had just broken up with him and he needed a place to stay for the night. I was like, "That's not my problem. Like, you need to go home or wherever you came from." Well, at that point, he just kept trying and trying. I was, trying to shut the door or whatever. Well, he ended up shoving me through the door. She said that Jesse then stuffed a sock in her mouth and tied her up. He also held a knife to her throat and threatened to kill her if she screamed. Finally, I remember just sobbing, and I was like, you just do whatever you need to do. And he did. When he was done, he started pacing the room, panicking. She reassured him that she wouldn't tell anyone about what had happened. But when he left, she called the police, and they arrested him. He ended up entering an Alford plea, which means he pleaded guilty but maintained his innocence. A judge then sentenced him to 20 years in prison. Now, you would think that that would teach him a lesson, but it didn't. While in prison, he somehow got a cell phone and began sending lewd and inappropriate texts and photos to an underage girl. Despite this, they still thought that it was a good idea to release him in 2020 after serving 17 years of his sentence. He was still charged with soliciting a minor, but the case kept getting delayed, and it was because of these delays that he was able to set his claw on his next victims. Unfortunately, that happened to be Holly, her children, and their friends. It's unclear whether Holly knew about his past when she married him, but it appears that at some point she came to find out about it, and when she confronted him, he hired a woman to tell her it was all a big misunderstanding. She even claimed that the victim was 19 and not 16 when the crime happened. Holly's family believes he manipulated her from the moment they met. Her sister Heather said, "I don't believe she ever had any clue as to who he really was. Psychos like him are good at smooth talking and manipulation. She was lied to and manipulated from day one. She would never have knowingly put her children or anyone's children in that danger." Holly's mother, Janet Mayo, described Jesse as very demure and standoffish. She said he kept her daughter and grandkids under lock and key. He had to know where they were at all times, which sent red flags up. Jesse was set to begin his trial on May 1st, 2023. But before that happened, a series of horrifying events would unfold, leaving the entire country reeling in shock.
What started as an Amber Alert ended with 7 bodies found on this Henryetta property.
On Saturday, April 29th, 2023, Holly's youngest daughter, Tiffany, invited her friends, Ivy Webster, 14, and Brittany Brewer, 16, to her house for the weekend. This was nothing unusual. The girls would often hang out at each other's homes on weekends. And up to this point, the parents didn't have any reason to suspect that anything bad could happen. Ivy was said to be a sweet girl who loved animals, softball, and people. She and Tiffany had been best friends for years. Brittany, on the other hand, was an outgoing and motivated teen who got straight A's in school. She had dreams of becoming a teacher or a veterinarian and had actually been selected to be Miss Henryetta. The two girls arrived at Tiffany's house at 5 p.m., ready for a fun-filled weekend with typical teenage girl activities. They were supposed to leave on Sunday and head over to a ranch in McAllister for swimming. Ivy kept her mom, Ashley Webster, updated throughout the night via Snapchat. The next day, she texted that they were on their way to McAllister. Then, communication stopped. At around 5 p.m., Ashley received a strange call from Jesse telling her that they were going to be a bit late coming home.
And then I got a call from Jesse around 5 something. And I've never received a call from Jesse before. I've spoke to Holly, I've spoke to all the other kids, but never from Jesse. And he told me basically they were out in McAllister, they weren't getting good service, and that he had to walk far enough as it was just to get that little bit of communication.
But Ivy never came home that evening. And the next day, her parents, together with Brittany's parents, went to the police and reported them missing. An Amber Alert was issued that same morning when the two girls missed their school bus. The alert said that the teens were last seen at 1:22 a.m. that morning in Henryetta, and they were believed to be traveling in a white Chevy Avalanche with Jesse McFadden. Meanwhile, Jesse had also missed his trial, and several officers were stationed outside his property waiting with an arrest warrant. The warrant came through at around 3 p.m., but what awaited them was far beyond anything they could have imagined. 7 bodies, including the missing girls, laid scattered across the property. There were others: Jesse, his wife Holly, and her 3 children, Tiffany, Michael, and Riley, each one with fatal bullet wounds to the head, fired from a 9mm pistol. The gruesome scene left no doubt. This was an act of cold, calculated violence.
The injuries include Ivy Webster suffered 1 gun wound to the head. Brittany Brewer suffered 1 gun wound to the head. Riley Allen suffered 1 gun wound to the head. Tiffany Guess suffered 2 gun wounds to the head. Michael Mayo suffered 2 gun wounds to the head. Holly McFadden suffered 3 gun wounds to the head. And Jesse McFadden appears to have shot himself in the head.
The bodies were spread out in 2 different directions on the sprawling land. Ivy, Brittany, and Riley were found nearly a quarter mile from the house, while the other 4 victims lay deep in a wooded area. The eerie distance between the bodies hinted at something even more sinister.
Do you think they ran away?
I don't have any evidence to indicate that, but there's no way to know.
And the other 2 victims?
Well, there's more than just 2 more. The other 4 decedents were found together approximately 450, 500 yards east and a little bit south of where the 3 girls were found, and they were all together.
The news of the gruesome murders shook the entire community. Many struggled to understand how something like this could have happened. Ivy and Brittany's parents were even more devastated when they learned about Jesse's criminal past.
We were told that some bodies were in a row and some other bodies were scattered on the property. I just want to know if my girlfriend, I want to know if she tried to run.
Another family member confirms the 5 other deaths are McFadden, his wife Holly, and her 3 children. McFadden was released in 2020 after serving 16 years of a 20-year prison sentence. He was expected in court yesterday on new charges of soliciting sexual conduct with a minor and possession of child pornography. Ivy's parents say their daughter was best friends with McFadden's stepdaughter Tiffany, and they trusted the family.
It was either Ivy was going over there for the weekend or Tiffany was coming over here for the weekend, and it's been like that for 2 years. And we didn't question, and we should have. But on the other hand, we shouldn't have to question because he should have still been locked up.
Even though the motive for the killings is still unclear, the police found some evidence that hints at why it might have happened. As we know, Jesse was supposed to go on trial that same morning that the bodies were found. Police believe that he committed this heinous crime to hide his secrets and keep his family from finding out the awful truth about him. Caitlin Babb, the girl that he was accused of sending inappropriate texts to when she was underage, received disturbing messages from him the night before the trial. She shared that while preparing for her day in court in Oklahoma, she saw a Facebook message request from Jesse around 8 p.m. In those messages, Jesse seemed to blame her for not dropping the charges and complained that his life was falling apart because of her. He wrote, "I did exactly what I promised I would do when I got out. I got a marketing job, made great money, and was advancing. I've been here 2 years now, built a great life like I promised I would do with you. Now it's all gone. I told you I wouldn't go back. This is all on you for continuing this." You could tell from Jesse's messages that he was desperate. He did not want to go back to prison, and he was trying to manipulate her into dropping the charges. At first, Caitlin thought maybe he was just blaming her for something personal, like losing a job or something. The message also made it clear that Jesse didn't care about his bail conditions anymore, since reaching out to her was a clear violation. Caitlin didn't want to get involved, so she ignored the message. Instead, she took a screenshot and sent it to the county district attorney just to be safe. The next morning, she got a call from the prosecutor with some bad news. The trial was delayed again because Jesse's lawyer had asked for more time, claiming there was an issue with Jesse's phone. Then, just 30 minutes later, Caitlin got another urgent phone call from the prosecutor saying that 2 teenage girls were missing and that Jesse was involved. Caitlin was afraid that he might come after her, so she packed a bag and rented an Airbnb 45 minutes away. She was shocked when she heard about the murders. She believes it all could have been prevented had Jesse remained locked up. They could have prevented these deaths. This never should have happened. I don't know how many times I told them he is a dangerous man. You are putting little girls in danger. I don't know how many times I screamed at the top of my lungs for someone to care. Now look at what happened. Crystal Strong also said she knew Jesse would hurt someone else when given the chance. She begged the authorities not to let him out, but no one listened.
I've never been contacted about when he was getting out. The last time I heard from anybody was when I was 17, and the DA or whoever it was told me that Jesse was really high on meth, that he's sorry, things happen and I need to learn how to forgive. And I hung up on her and I tried to suppress the memories and move on with my life. I don't have any contact with Canadian Shores or any of that area. And the minute I heard about this morning, I had a gut-wrenching feeling that those babies weren't going to come out of there.
A few days after the horrific murders, the victims' families and a sheriff's investigator were allowed to enter the house where the loved ones had spent their last days. What they found inside was shocking. There were multiple beds with chains and restraints locked in place. In the kitchen, a chain and lock were even attached to the island. The house was full of disturbing things: bondage toys, restraining devices, bottles of lube, and books related to witchcraft. There was also paraphernalia everywhere, including what looked like a candy. Investigators gathered a ton of evidence, including computers, cell phones, dirty sheets, and other unsettling items. One of the families found their daughter's cell phone among several other devices, along with a bloody wet wipe.
Phone or phone case.
Thursday afternoon, News 4 was invited by Webster and his family to take a closer look at where his daughter took her last breath. Behind these walls, the family found and bondage devices. In one of the bedrooms were restraints bolted into the bed frame. There was also a shelf filled with books about witchcraft. 10 feet away in the kitchen, another restraint with chains and locks still attached. Although there were reportedly 4 bodies found in this home, we didn't see any bloodstains, no blood splatters. In the back room, the most shocking find of it all: crucial items that had not been collected.
That's them. Hey, that's them.
Okay,
that's
is that hers?
Yep. Okay. Hold on.
Call the sheriff.
Yep.
Don't touch them. Don't move them.
Ivy Webster's cell phone was tucked away in a laundry room cabinet, along with 2 other cell phones and 2 laptops. In the same room, syringes, what appears to be residue, and various items the family believes was used to their daughter before she was murdered.
It was obvious that Jesse was seriously disturbed. The state of the house and everything found inside made it clear that something awful had been going on inside that house for a long time. With all of this happening right under Holly's nose, people can't help but wonder how much she actually knew. What really frustrated the victims' families was how the police didn't seem to be taking the investigation seriously. They left important evidence behind and didn't even bother to seal off the crime scene. It felt like they weren't even trying to put pieces together and figure out what really happened.
This was not done right. No crime scene tape.
We are open to any suggestions you all can
I'm saying
give.
this. They didn't do their job, and the whole world's going to know it.
What would this accomplish?
I'm a grieving parent that my daughter got raped and murdered, and you're telling me right now that I don't have a right to know what happened? The story's right here. It's right here. And it's still sitting here. Still!
Disgusted with the investigation into his daughter's murder, he only saw more uncollected evidence on his walkout.
In an emotional interview, Ivy's parents said they believe Jesse pretended to be their daughter to text them after he had killed her. Ivy's mom, Ashley, said that she and her daughter were texting until late on Saturday night. Then on Sunday, she received a text that sounded off.
The last time me and her communicated was Saturday late at night. Me and her were sending Snapchat pictures to each other. And then I sent her one of her dog, and closer to midnight, she's like, "Mom, you're past your bedtime. You gotta go to bed." And then I got a message the next morning, Sunday morning, that was from her phone, but I don't believe it was from her anymore, saying that they were going to McAllister and that she would be home later.
We think Jesse wrote
That one.
that one.
Why?
And it probably had already happened by that point.
Because the way Ivy is, she's my best friend. And she is constantly, "Mom, I love you. Okay, Mom, we're gonna go to eat. Okay, Mom, we're done eating. We're gonna go do this now." She's very, she lets me know everything. And this message was just kind of like, "Hey, we're going to McAllister. I'll see you around 5.
Now, if you thought this case was shocking, wait until you watch the next video. But before you leave, let me know your thoughts about this case in the comments. Also, like, subscribe, and hit that bell button.